Okay, hi. This is the Glance project update. I'm Brian Rossmade. I was the PTL for the Queen's delivery of Glance. And this is Erno. He's the PTL for what's about to happen in Rocky. So this is my name. So I'm a member of the technical staff of Verizon Wireless, working in the Verizon Cloud platform. And
I'm software engineer at Red Hat, working mainly on Glance and full-time ops streamer.
Okay, so we're asked to give a quick overview of the Glance project just for people who might not know. So Glance is the OpenStack image service. So we provide services and associated libraries to store, browse, share, distribute, and manage bootable disk images, other data closely associated with initializing compute resources, so like container images, and metadata definitions. And just how long has Glance been around? A long time, since Bexar. Jay Pipes was the first PTL of Glance. And the latest survey indicates that Glance is used in 95% of clouds, which is good. And then just what is Glance? It's really kind of multiple things. So it's a project. It's a community of contributors who are writing the software and the documentation and testing and making sure everything hangs together. It's also a service that implements the image service for OpenStack. And it's an API, so it provides an implementation of that image service API that you can actually use to interact and get images in and out. And just one thing about an API, because you may be familiar with using Glance version 2. In Rocky, there will be no other choice than to use Glance version 2. We're finally removing version 1. The Glance client is going to continue to support version 1 through Rocky, but in the S cycle, the version 1 support is going to be removed from the Glance client also. And just some interesting statistics just about how many people are contributing. So in Queens, we had, as far as reviews went, 101 contributors from 28 different companies contributed reviews to Glance. And then as far as commits went, we had 59 contributors from 24 companies. So pretty good, pretty much interest. Right now in Rocky so far, so we're hoping to exceed this. We got 46 contributors from 16 companies have done reviews, and then 35 different people have made commits from 13 companies. So what we're responsible for in Glance is these 4 code repositories. So we've got the OpenStack Glance repository where Glance, the thing you think of as Glance lives. So it's a Glance server, the Glance registry, which is deprecated and is actually being removed in Rocky, and most of the Glance documentation lives there. And then there's a Glance store repository where there's a library that's used by mostly Glance and Glare to access the backends. So it's sort of an abstraction layer that allows us to access various different backends that you can use to store the images. We also produce the Python Glance client, which is a client library and also a command line interface that you can use and may have to access images. And then we have the Glance specs repository, which is where all the design documents are. So that's what we do. Now, as far as what actually happened in Queens, so the Queens release is Glance 16.0.1. We did have a quick point release to get a couple of quick bug fixes in. So that's in the stable Queens branch in the repository. The current API version is now 2.6. So you may remember in the last cycle we had 2.6 as an experimental API that was optional to run. Now 2.6 is the version of the API. The interoperable image import feature that we started in the previous release in Pike is now enabled by default. So there's still an option, but now it's on. And then there was a new web download import method that was introduced that's available. It implements basically the old copy from that was very popular in the version 1 API, but which was not implemented in v2 on purpose because it has some security problems. So to make it more secure, there's a whitelist and blacklist that you can configure that will handle on filtering on 3 different levels to allow or disallow different URLs that you get images from. And let me just give you, so how to configure this thing is all in the Glance documentation. So you would basically look for our admin docs, and if you look for interoperable image import, there's a pretty long page that explains configuring interoperable image import, and also explains the configuration of a couple more features associated with that. So we also have a plugin framework for the interoperable image imports. The basic idea with the image import is that instead of letting users just slap images into Glance and just directly upload them, they do this import process, and it gives you as an operator an opportunity to examine the image data before you make it available to be booted in a VM. So there's a plugin framework, so you can write specific plugins or third-party, or you can supply plugins for other people, so to do whatever it is you need to be done. So that framework is there, and there is an initial image plugin that's optional to use, but you can use it as an example to see how you would write one and how you could make this work. So it's a property injection plugin for a specific use case where people want to affect, right, you can use different image metadata to affect the Nova scheduler for where images are going to land for builds. And so you can set something up so that if a user imports an image, specific metadata will be put on there, so it'll go to specific places. But anyway, you can look that up. So that's in the documentation as well. And then Erno's going to be giving a lightning talk on Wednesday about the image import plugins. So that would be another opportunity to get some more information about how that structure works and what you can do with it. Okay. And then one more thing about interoperable image import. We've got the Glance client does support that in version 2.10.0 or higher. So basically, if you grab the Glance client out of stable queens or out of master, it will support the interoperable image import process, both the Glance direct method that was introduced in Pike and the web download method that's introduced now. And there's going to be a session where you can give feedback if you've tried it out, and if you haven't, you can read about it real quick and give us some input. So that's Wednesday at 11 a.m. So we want to focus just on what we need to do next, what's happening, whether people have had experiences, anyone's tried it out, stuff like that. Okay, now just a few quick other things that we've got going. The Glance scrubber was refactored. Previously, it had a dependency on the Glance registry, which we are planning to make go away. So before we did that, the Glance scrubber, which is an optional tool that you can use, you can look at the Glance documentation about that or ask us after the session, no longer depends on the Glance registry. It goes directly to the Glance database to do its business. The registry service itself is deprecated and is going to be removed during the Stein development cycle. But since the V1 API is being removed in Rocky, and it's the only thing that really is a consumer of the V1 registry, that's going to go away in Rocky also. And so I just want a reminder, the image service V1 API will be gone in the next release, so hopefully everybody's prepared for that. And then there's some other features. I encourage everyone, like really strongly encourage everyone to read the release notes, because we actually put a lot of effort into them, and it turns out not a lot of people read them. So I would like to give you the opportunity to check them out. So if you just Google OpenStack release notes, Glance, and then look at the ones for Queens, you'll get the full list of what happened. And now Erno will talk about what's happening in Rocky.
Yeah, so we are running Rocky cycle at the moment, and basically we have a couple of things that we are really putting our focus in, security-related stuff. So we are planning to support finally secure hashing algorithms in Glance. So the hash there at the moment is just MD5, and that has been a problem for lots of people. And there is work in a way to actually use some secure hashing algorithms for Glance. And as a future proof, we are planning also making it configurable, and so that the algorithm and the hash will be actually stored in the image metadata. So if you need to change your hashing algorithm on the fly, Glance will know for the older images what algorithm was used, so that we are not stuck on something that suddenly proves to be insecure or proves to be problematic. And then we have our long-running favorite OSSN 0075, which is touching the problems what we have in the immutability of the images and reusing image IDs and such, and also how that can be enforced by enforcing deployers using the database purge. So we try to figure out finally this cycle a reasonable solution to at least limit the effects of that problem as much as possible, without breaking too much on what has been going on, or breaking too much of the feature set, how we have been dealing with the...
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt, but that would be a great topic for feedback. It's a very short spec, but it's been a while. We've been trying to fix this and come up with a solution that's acceptable to the entire community. So if you're interested in this, please read the spec and show up at the Glance feedback session and let us know what you think.
Yeah, so the spec is not actually merged yet, so it will not show up on the specs OpenStack org page.
Yeah,
so if you want to find the spec, come and have a chat with us. We point you to the right direction, or you can have a look on the review.openstack.org and filter the repository to Glance specs, and the review will be there. So sorry not having the link actually here, because I didn't realize we haven't merged that yet.
Yeah, and it's titled something like Fix OSSN 0075, so it should be easy to find.
Then other things what we are trying to work on and trying to get into the Rocky release is first stage of our image lifecycle management. So lots of people are struggling having images, and especially when they roll in new versions of images, you need to keep the old image around so that your live migrations and snapshots and stuff like that still works. But you don't want your users booting from that old image, you want your users booting from the new image. And the way we are trying to address it on this cycle, we are trying to give it a flag so that you can hide your old images. So for example, Nova, who knows the image ID still, can go and boot up from that image for the migrations and whatever needed. But on the same time, it will not show up on the end user's image list, and kind of that way discouraging the end users using that old image and instead of going for the new one. And there is a review up for that as well. We started policy refactoring. So Glance policies work way differently than most of the OpenStack projects. So we have our policy layers way down from API, and we have our policies affecting more of the actual function dealing with the image rather than the API call, which causes us a lot of problems because let's say we want to update image location, and we just basically can't do that even internally in Glance, as our policy layer is preventing that because it's way closer to the database than it should be. And this is going to be a long journey to get there, but we are trying to move our policies closer, mapped to the API calls. And we try not to break them, as in backwards compatibility. We try to keep them as closely mapped as possible. But if you have some creative policies in your clouds, please keep eye on this space and please provide us feedback. If there is something coming in that looks like we are totally going to break you, let us know as soon as possible so that we can rethink that approach. And Abhishek, who is unfortunately not here with us here in Vancouver, is working with multiple store supports. So the Glance store is still pretty much on the state as it was when we pulled it out from the Glance main repo. And lots of the configuration is still working in a way like it was integrated part of the Glance code. And that's something what we are working at the moment, trying to make more of a reasonable isolation there in between, and having Glance store being able also to provide the store objects for multiple stores of the same backend. So let's say you have 3 different Ceph clusters in your your cloud, you want to have your images logically split between those different backends. We are working towards that scenario that you can actually have Glance supporting your multiple Cephs or multiple Cinders or whatever. And other things that we are working still is to have the interoperable image import fully tested. We have improved a lot of the testing over past couple of cycles, and since we've rolled it as an experimental, there is still some work to do, and we try to make sure that that's as stable as it can be. And also, one more bit on that plugin framework is having a plugin available that allows automatic image conversion. So you might have a backend that benefits having a specific image format like RAW for Ceph, and you don't want to limit your end users figuring out how to convert that image to a RAW and upload it to your cloud. So what we are trying to do is utilizing QEMU image and just having that conversion there automatically, so that when the import process happens, the image gets converted to the format what is best for the cloud itself. And then what's happening beyond Rocky is further work on that image lifecycle management. So once we get those old images hidden out, then it's time to start looking what else is needed to have meaningful lifecycle management and how we should improve that. So any ideas, feedback, if you're willing to work on that side, please contact us, and we are more than happy to work with you to make that lifecycle management better. And there was lots of mentioning we have started work on Rocky, and we are not pushing that much of a new things in our planning board for S, because we are a small team. We have limited amount of resources to work on these, so we are hoping that we can finish most of the work what we are starting on the Rocky cycle and have it stable production ready code in S. And lots of these pointers what we have here is actually something what we discussed in PTGs earlier when we did our future planning. So a couple of things for T and U. So hopefully understanding a little bit better for the multi-region requirements and how we get clans communicating with other clans instances and understanding that they might not all be operating in the same environment.
Yeah, I'll just go really quickly through this stuff because we've got a minute left. So Glance onboarding session tomorrow. I'll have a slide at the end that's got more of this. So how to contribute. We need people to do everything. So whether you do documentation or whether you want to read specs or you want to contribute code, please.
We have an onboarding session, I believe, tomorrow.
Right.
So.
Actually, let me just skip to this stuff. So there are a lot. So thank you. There are a lot of Glance sessions this summit, right? That's where we are. The summit.
Yeah.
So summit and forum sessions. So here's the list. So tomorrow there's some edge computing stuff. There's also the project onboarding. So if you want to get involved with the project, we'd be happy to talk to you and show you where to get going. Erno's talk on the image import plugins. And then there's specific feedback for image import. And then also the general Glance operators feedback is on Wednesday. And then finally on Thursday in the morning is the image lifecycle management. We'll discuss what we've got slated for now and try to get some ideas going for how to complete it.
Yeah. So let's just emphasis on that. Let's try to keep the Wednesday morning session around the image import and more generic Glance feedback and about everything else we have been talking here. Bring that for the Wednesday afternoon. And grab either of us if you see us, and we'll be happy. Absolutely, we will be around here all week. So thanks a million for coming, and any feedback is greatly appreciated. And sorry we didn't leave time for questions, but we'll be around, so grab us. Thank you.